Ecclesiastes chapter 1 is where we are, and I want you to find your place, and we're going to read through it and spend some time here this morning. We are in this study, as you find your place, through the book of Ecclesiastes that we have called Upside Down. The goal of the study is literally to encourage us to begin living life and seeing life not from the downside up, but from the upside down, to have a different perspective and view of where it is that we are and what is going on in our world. And that's the heart behind the writing of this letter from who we believe is King Solomon, the son of David. Before we read it, I feel like the reality of the world that we live in has to be felt by all of us. Let me ask you this. Have you ever felt like, or do you ever feel like we are on this endless treadmill or this hamster wheel that just goes and goes and goes and goes, and it's like we never get anywhere? We wake up every morning to go to work, we get tired, we come home, we go to bed, and we get up to do it all over again the next day, looking forward to the weekend when we have some chores and some to-dos. And then we get through that and we start the process all over again. And then we look forward to vacation, and summer vacation comes and we're ready to go. And then after it, we need a vacation from our vacation, and we start the whole process over again of waking up, going to work, going to bed, doing it all over again. Maybe you look forward to birthdays or anniversaries or holidays, and they come and they go, and you think that's it, and then you have to wait another 365 days for all to come again, and you work and you work and you work and you labor and you labor and you labor, and you're on this endless cycle, and then you retire to rest, and then you die, and that's it. Like, welcome to church. I hope you're excited about the songs we just sang, because I'm not going to have good news for you, right? But that's the reality of it. Feels like often where we are. Life is on this endless wheel, and it goes and it goes and it goes, and it never stops. And that is what the writer of this book, King Solomon, is saying, is feeling, and is trying to get across to us the reality of that feeling. The word he uses is vanity. We're going to look at that word a little bit more closer here in just a second. But what Solomon was feeling is that unless he changed his perspective, unless he began to see things differently or seek another source of joy and happiness, that his life was going to be full of emptiness and disappointments. And so we want to encourage you, as the writer of this book did in chapter 12 that we studied last week, is to begin to see life not from the downside up, not looking on earth for all of the things that can give you hope and joy, because they never will, but starting with your relationship with God, and that's the upside, and then letting that flow down into our lives in every other way and get us off of the feeling of vanity and emptiness and pointlessness on the endless hamster wheel or the merry-go-round of life, and find some purpose and hope and significance in it. That brings us to Ecclesiastes chapter 1. It brings us to what Solomon wrote for us to learn. And we're going to read verse 1 through 11. So you find your place, if you would, in the Bible, and we're going to read it and look at what God has for us. Here's what he says, verse number 1. The words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. That's Solomon, we believe. The vast majority of people, though he doesn't say his name, believe this is King Solomon writing this. And here's what he says. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. What does man gain by all the toil at which he toils under the sun? A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises and the sun goes down and hastens to the place where it rises. The wind blows to the south and goes around to the north. Around and round goes the wind, and on its circuits the wind returns. All streams run to the sea, but the sea is not full. To the place where the streams flow, there they flow again. All things are full of weariness, a man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done, and there is nothing new under the sun. Is there a thing of which it is said, see, this is new? It has been already in the ages before us. There is no remembrance of former things, nor will there be any remembrance of latter things yet to be among those who come after. I laugh because that is depressing. Do you feel it? It is depressing. Now, the big idea that we want to put over the top of this passage to help us really live and start to live from the upside down is this. Write it down if you have notes. Upside down life infuses significance into the cycle of every life. So an upside down life actually infuses into your life a significance or a sense of significance, a sense of purpose, a sense of hope, a sense of there is a meaning to all that I am in and all that I am going through. So these cycles that never end in life, these hamster wheels, merry-go-rounds that never end, become significant when I am living upside down as opposed to downside up. So what needs the infusion of significance? What does it change? In what way does upside down perspective and living change and make significant this life and the cycles of life? And he points out a couple of them to us in this passage that I just want to lean into for the next couple of minutes. And it's really going to be straightforward from the passage. So I want you to look on your copy of the word with me, if you would. Here's what he says. First of all, I want you to write these down. There are three gospel significance or significance cycles that are influenced when we have an upside down view of life. And here's what they are. Number one, write this down. I see the cycle of fallen perspective. So when I have an upside down life, when I'm living, starting up top and working down into the rest of my life, I begin to see the cycle of fallen perspective. Now, what's the cycle of fallen perspective? Well, that's found in verse 2 and 3. Solomon writing this, vanity of vanities. Now, in order for us to feel the weight of what he's saying, we need to remember who this is that's writing this. Vanity of vanities, he says, after he had the resources and the position to experience everything that you and I might think this world has to offer that would bring us any sense of joy and hope and significance. He had the ability to experience it, and he experienced it. He experienced parties. He experienced wisdom. He experienced success. He experienced notoriety. He experienced all of these things over and over again and lived his life indulging in this endless pursuit for meaning. And at the end of it all, he writes the book of Ecclesiastes, and he starts by saying, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. Now, the word vanity means literally breath. It's the idea of on a cold night when you breathe out and the vapors of your breath appear for a minute and then it's gone. It's pointless. It's powerless. It has no substance. It has no significance. And he says all of life, all of the pursuits under the sun, he says, all of the work that we do and all of the pursuits in the hope to find some sort of meaning and joy and hope and significance in this life is all vanity. It's all empty. It's all pointless. Then he says in verse 3, what does man gain by all the toil at which he toils under the sun? So what value is there? If I were to take everything that I ever gained and everything that I ever accomplished and put them in a pile, Solomon asks, what gain is all of that? What point is all of that? What value is all of that? How much in the profit ledger does all of that get you at the end of your life, at the end of your going around looking for hope? Does it produce any hope? Does it produce any significance? Does it produce any meaning to your life? Does it give you any lasting joy or any lasting happiness? Or as you get to this thing, hoping that it will bring you some kind of joy, are you left thinking, that's it? That's it? There's got to be more. There's got to be more. And so the upside down perspective doesn't see life as vanity. That's his whole point. His whole point is that the upside down life gives us a new perspective. It helps us to see things new, and it helps us to look at life and say, actually, my joy is not tethered to these things. My joy is tethered to God. Therefore, I can enjoy these things rightly. Let me prove that to you. Look at Ecclesiastes chapter 2. I'm going to get ahead of myself and probably regret it in a couple of weeks. But here's what he says in chapter 2, verse 24. He says, there is nothing better for a person than that he should eat and drink and find enjoyment in his toil. So wait a second, you just said there is no joy and there is no gain in all of your toil. And now he's saying there's nothing better than that you should eat and find enjoyment in it. And here's the perspective. This also I saw is from the hand of God. For apart from him, who can eat or who can have enjoyment? Apart from him. But with him, all of the emptiness of life and all of the struggles of life and all of the toils of life that always leave me depleted and empty actually become a source of enjoyment when I'm starting with him. When I'm living life from the upside down, I find hope, I find purpose, and I find significance even in these things that are under the sun. So the upside down life changes my perspective. I begin to be able to see the cycle of fallen perspective. What's the cycle of fallen perspective? Here's what it is. I have hopeful optimism that what I'm about to do is going to bring me some kind of joy. So let's illustrate that this way. You may be thinking, man, I'm about to get a promotion, and I'm optimistic that that's it. When I get it, I'm finally going to be making enough money to be able to live in ease and take life easy, and I'm going to finally be happy. My wife's going to finally be able to live with me again. Find joy in all of these things. I'm going to find significance. Or maybe it is this endeavor, this community service that you're doing and this nonprofit that you're starting. You're thinking, yes, this is it. As soon as I get this going, it's going to change everything. It's going to make my life worth living, and I'm going to find significance. Or maybe it's that new car or that new home or that new whatever, fill in the blank, and you say, that's it. I'm finally going to find joy. That's the optimism that we have as fallen perspectives. And the fallen perspective gives us that optimism, but that always ends in this bitter cynicism. Well, that wasn't that worth it. That wasn't that good. What was the point of all of that? And it leads to this bitter cynicism of saying, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. Pointless and pointless and pointless is all of these things. I went to fight for a new car. I got it. Now I'm empty and I have no joy that lasts any longer than the length of that car because it eventually gets old and eventually gets dented and a shopping cart eventually runs into it and it eventually drips oil and then I got to get a new car. But maybe if I finally get that car, it'll make me happy. And he says this is an endless cycle that brings no joy. But when you live from the upside down, you see things differently. And so you don't go from optimism to cynicism. You see things accurately and you enjoy them accurately, being that they were given to you from God. And so it changes everything. It changes everything. And so the perspective of Solomon here is that vanity of vanities. If I could sit down with Solomon and we have an interview, that'd be cool, wouldn't it? We're sitting up here in our two stools and I say, tell us a little bit about your life. And he said, here's what I've been. I've been there and I've done it. I'm not speaking from somebody who hasn't been there. I'm not speaking from somebody who hasn't experienced it. Anything that you think you need to help you find the joy that you're looking for, I've done it, and I'm here to tell you it doesn't deliver. It's vain. It's the fallen perspective that when you live from the upside down, you can see clearly and accurately so that you are not deceived into thinking that that is finally going to bring you some kind of joy. Do you feel that? Do you see that? That's his perspective. That's his perspective. So, when I live upside down, it infuses significance into the cycle of every life, and I'm able now to see the cycle of fallen perspective, and I'm not duped by it. I'm not deceived by it. I see it accurately. Secondly, I want you to see from our passage, not only do I see the cycle of fallen perspective, I celebrate the cycle of created order. I just want you to feel the weight of this. I find this humorous, and I think I might be enjoying the humor of this more than you do because you're kind of looking at me a little bit strange. But here's what he says. A generation goes and a generation comes. People come and people go. People live, people die. People go on and die and move on from this earth. And in spite of all of that, the earth remains forever. It just keeps going. The sun rises, and the sun goes down. And it hastens to the place where it rises. The sun, one man said, is like it's chasing its tail. It rises in the morning and it just hurries through the sky until it gets to its closing. And then it rises again and it hurries. And it's just on this endless cycle of whether you are earth is center of the universe or sun is center of the universe. The sun is just revolving or the earth is just revolving around the earth. To open up a whole new can of worms, I know. So let's just move on from that. But that's the reality, is everything just keeps spinning and everything just keeps going and the sun just keeps making its way, chasing its tail around the earth and moving on to the next day. And then the wind blows. It blows to the south and it goes around to the north. Around and around goes the wind, and on its circuits the wind returns. So Solomon is just sitting there, and I picture him sitting on his front porch as an old man thinking, nothing delivered. I'm here on my porch in my palace, and I had every resource and every experience, and nothing delivered, and I'm about to die, and yet the earth is going to continue on as if I never lived on it. The sun is going to continue to rise, and it's going to chase his tail to the west, and it's going to rise in the east and chase his tail to the west. The wind is going to blow and keep blowing. The trade winds are going to keep blowing, and it's going to act as if I wasn't even here. And then he says, verse 7, all the streams run to the sea, but the sea is not full. To the place where the streams flow, there they flow again. So rain happens, condensation, precipitation. It runs down the streams into the ocean, and then evaporation happens, and it does this endless cycle, the water cycle. And he says this continues to happen. The sun continues to chase its tail. The wind continues to blow. The water continues to rain, flow, and evaporate, and it just continues, and it continues, and it continues. And he's saying really to the point where it's as if I wasn't even here. It's as if the significance of my life didn't even matter, and all of creation is just this endless cycle of merry-go-round, cosmic merry-go-rounds, and what's the point? You ever felt that way? That's where Solomon was. See, when you are living downside up in a place of emptiness and depression, depleted by the endless pursuits that you have given your life to, hoping that they will give you joy, but never finding joy, you even begin to see the beauty of creation as this monotonous, pointless process. Did you ever notice that when you wash your car, it runs better? You know what I'm talking about? Give me an amen or like yes. Like you guys are like, you're crazy. I know I am, but doesn't it feel that way? When I wash my car, I'm just like, man, this thing runs better. Like, I must have done something really good with that soap. It just runs better. I washed the car the other day, and I said to Angela, doesn't our car just run better when it's nice and clean and sparkling? It just runs better, and it absolutely does not. It doesn't run any different than it did when it was full of mud and animal crackers from the kids. It doesn't run any better. It's the same car. It's the same engine. It's the same thing, but perspective is changed. And all of a sudden, when I'm driving a clean car, I'm thinking, oh yeah, I got a nice car. It's clean, it's sparkling, and it's nice. Because our perspective changes it. So when I live downside up, depressed and disappointed, I can even look at creation with all of its beauty and all of its order, and I can say, geez, man, this just never stops. The sun's gonna come up tomorrow. It's just gonna remind me that I have another day to work. And then the sun's going to go down, and it's going to remind me I got to go to bed again because the sun's coming up again, and I got to get back to work. It's just this endless cycle, this endless, pointless, revolving door that never ends. It's the cosmic merry-go-round. That's the fallen perspective. But the upside down sees creation. And when you start with God, you begin to see creation not as a cosmic merry-go-round, but as the evidence of a God of order and power. And you see it, and you see the heavens and the earth, and you think, oh my goodness, God, you are so powerful, you are so mighty, and you are so strong. And you celebrate that when you start to see life from the upside down. When you seek points, when you seek hope and you seek significance in the things under the sun on this earth, you will forever be disappointed and left searching for more, even so to the point that you'll look at the beauty of creation and you'll think, man, what's the point? I'm going to die, and it's just going to continue on without me. And no matter what I did not change the course of the revolution of this earth or the blowing wind or the rising sun. And so instead, when I have an upside down view, I celebrate the cycle of created order. I see these things and I say, yes, that's my God. Yes, I enjoy. I can sit and watch the sun rise in the beauty of the desert, and I can say, yes, my God is making that sun rise again. And I can see it set again, and I can say, man, look at that beautiful sky. God is doing that. And the mercies are new every day. I can stand at the edge of the Grand Canyon, and I don't just say, man, that's a big hole. I can say, that is miraculous and majestic and mighty. I don't stand at the edge of the sea and think, that's just a big pool of water. I look at it and say, that thing is enormous. There's a powerful, mighty, incredible God that designed that. I don't look at the monotony of life and the endless treadmill of life and get depressed and frustrated and vain and empty. I say, yes, God gave me this life and created this universe for me to live in so that I could represent him, know him, and glorify him for what he has done. That's upside down living. And I think that it's pretty clear that that is the end game of Solomon, is to point out all of the meaninglessness of everything so that we have this ache for something more, and then the answer to that something more is God, So when I have an upside down life, my cycles are infused with significance. So instead of going from optimism to bitter cynicism, I see things differently, and I don't put all my hope in those things. Instead of going from looking at the created order as this monotonous, endless, painful life, I see it as the beauty of God's creation. And then a third thing is true that I want you to see from the passage. And it's found in verse 8, and I want you to write it down this way. We'll say it this way. I steward the cycle of human experience. I steward the cycle of human experience. Look at verse 8. Let's just feel the sadness of this. You ready? All things are full of weariness. All things are full of extreme fatigue. Even good things are fatiguing. I asked Isaac and Max, who had an incredible time yesterday with the teenagers at their youth conference, and I said, how was it? They said, good, but I'm tired. This was great, but I'm exhausted. What they were saying was even good things wear me out. And it never ends. The weariness continues, so much so that a man cannot utter. How do you explain it? Good things are supposed to recreate me, but they wear me out. The endless cycle of my experiences just exhaust me and drain me. Notice the insatiable desires that we have in verse 8. The eye is not satisfied with seeing. In an age where we have no limit to what we can see. You can watch anything on YouTube, anything on Netflix, anything on any device, anywhere in your lap right now. You might even be watching something on your device right now. It never stops. The eye is not satisfied. There's never a day when you saw enough and your eyes say, okay, I'm full, I'm done seeing. Never. You see it and you want to see it again. You hear it, he says, the ear in verse 8 is not filled, nor the ear filled with hearing. There's always something to hear. There's always a new book to listen to, a new podcast to hear, a new speech to be given and listened to. There's always a new thing to hear. And he says the insatiable desires and longings of our life are never satisfied. Your eye is never satisfied. Your ear is never satisfied. Your longings and lusts are never satisfied. Your eating to never be filled. That's his point. Then he says in verse 9, what has been is what will be. And what has been done is what will be done, and there's nothing new under the sun. We're in pursuit of the new thing. I'm going to write this new book, and it's going to revolutionize your life. I'm going to experience this new thing. I've never experienced it before. You probably never have either. And we're just going to experience this, and it's going to revolutionize my life, brand new. And he says, nope, that's been tried, that's been done, that's been experienced. It defeats your joy, and it robs you of your hope. So often my kids come home from school with another silly joke. Now, I'm a subscriber and follower of the Twitter feed Bad Dad Jokes. So I've heard just about every one of them. Plus, we have Steve Marshall in the church, so you hear every other joke that isn't included in that. And they come home with a joke, and they give me the joke, and then I finish the punchline. I'm like, oh, Dad, I thought I was going to give you a new joke that you hadn't heard before. And I'm like, no, I heard that one. I used to say that one. And that's the reality of what it's like trying to be in pursuit of something new. Hey, this new journey, guys, I got a new investment. It's going to be great. I've got this new journey. We're going to go walk on Mars. And he's like, no, we already walked on the moon. It wasn't that great. You can walk on Mars, but it's not going to be that fulfilling. You're not going to find some new source of life and the fountain of youth and find the ultimate hope and joy in that success that you think you're going to get, and all of a sudden you're going to be happy. That doesn't satisfy. It's nothing new under the sun. There's no new journey. There's no new discovery that's going to give you hope. And then he says in verse 10, is there a thing of which it is said, see, this is new? It has been already in the ages before us. He's not saying that Apple iPhones were invented ages before. That's not what he's saying. He's not saying there's no new inventions. What he's saying is there's nothing brand new that you're going to find that is going to bring you some kind of hope that hasn't been sought for and thought to be found generations before. There's nothing brand new. There's nothing new. There's nothing revolutionary that's just going to change everything, because everything on earth, listen, depressing moment again, everything on earth is going to lead you to a place of depleted emptiness and like, well, what's the point? What's the point? Then he says in verse 11, there is no remembrance of former things. So how many things have you forgotten? Look back in your life and think about the things that you've forgotten, not just in your life, but in all of history. 200 years ago, people who thought they were the most important people on the earth, I probably couldn't even give you their name or tell you anything about them today. And that's just in American history. Think about world history. He says, there is no remembrance of former things, nor will there be any remembrance of latter things yet to be among those who come after. He says, look, the things that you're looking forward to, the people who come after that won't even remember they happened. I asked Angela this week, I said, what's the most memorable, significant day that you had in your life? And guess what she said? Our wedding day. Oh, that's a oh moment, right? Oh, there you go, thank you. The moment she married me is what she was saying. That's what I took from that. The moment she got me, right? That's what I took from that. That's not what she meant. She meant that was a special night in which she was the princess of the night and everybody celebrated her and I was just there as this lump of flesh. But we really know that that was a special. February 24th. I did not say that to remind you that my anniversary is coming up, but it just served me very well. February 24th, we celebrate our wedding anniversary, and we celebrate it every year on February 24th, and we celebrate it because it was such a wonderful moment in our life. We looked forward to it with such anticipation, and we look back to it with such fond memories, and the reality is this, that when I'm dead and gone, my kids are going to forget when it was. And their kids certainly aren't even going to remember it because they're not, maybe we'll see some pictures, but they're not going to remember that February 24th was. And give me 2 generations from that, they're never going to remember. In fact, if they remember me at all, that will be good. Think about the most significant day of your life. Think about graduation that you anticipated, or think about the getting of that new thing that you thought was, that you anticipated coming, or the winning of that event, or that award, or whatever it might have been. Think about all of that. And then think that as you pass, people won't even remember it happened. Some of us have already forgotten who won the Super Bowl last week. Some of you are like, wait a second, who did? We can't remember because things that we look forward to as they pass, they go away. And that's his point, is that there is no lasting joy. There is no lasting imprint that your life makes. There is no fruit in all of your labor. There is nothing that you put in the gain ledger of your life. It's all empty. It's all vain. It's all pointless. There is no point. And here, Solomon is feeling that, and he's saying, my human experiences are pointless when you live from the downside up. But when you live from the upside down, you say things like the psalmist said when he said, teach us to number our days so that we might apply ourselves to wisdom. Help us to keep our view of how short and fleeting life is in perspective so that we can be good stewards of the life you've given us for your glory, living on mission for you. Hey, listen, guys, if we live for the downside, we are going to come to a depressing conclusion like Solomon. We are going to say, what's the point? I was reading and didn't get it into my notes, but I remember it clearly because you probably did too, that 60 Minutes interviewed Tom Brady after his 3rd Super Bowl win. You remember the issue. You can see the clip. And after the 3rd Super Bowl win, he made the comments of saying, this is it? I've got 3 Super Bowls, and everybody should be saying you're at the peak of your career. This is the pinnacle, he basically says. And he said, this is it? This is all there is? Literally, his words, this is all there is? And then he said this, he said, there's got to be something more. There's got to be something more. There's got to be something more. And the interviewer said, what is that, Tom? And he said, I wish I knew. I wish I knew. See, those who have obtained it, those who have succeeded at it, those who have all of the money and all of the success and all of the leisure and all of the pleasure and all of the notoriety and all of the fame, none of that delivers. It only overpromises. It tells you, this is it. This is what you need. You're going to find joy. And you get there and you think, this is it? This is all there is? That's downside up living. Upside down says, I start with God. And since I started with God, I've got everything I need. All joy and all hope and all purpose is found in Him. Therefore, everything that I experience in life, that's just a bonus joy that He gives me to enjoy. That's just a bonus celebration that He gives me to enjoy. I get to see creation, and I don't see it as this endless, pointless cycle, but I see it as the majesty of God on display in his artistry every day and every week, that's just bonus. I'm not looking at earth to give me joy. I'm looking at God to give me joy, and earth is just a reminder that there is a God to give me joy. And I look at this toil and this work, and I think, what's the point? No, I don't want to wake up Monday morning again to go back to work to repeat, and then hit repeat, and then hit repeat every week. I have a whole new purpose and a whole new drive in my life, and that is this. I know God, therefore all my joy is full in him, and my work and my labors all for his glory and all for his honor. It's all for him. So our way of thinking is there's nothing new. So God says, you know what? There is nothing new under the sun. But you know what? There is something new. There's a thing that we call the new covenant in the blood of Jesus Christ. He came, shed his blood to die for you so that you can have eternal life and have a relationship with God. And that produces new life. And with the Spirit indwells you and changes you, you become a new creation. All things are become new. And then one day we anticipate the future of his return when he develops and establishes a new heaven and a new earth. And our joy is built up from the upside down, not in the oldness of the earth, but in the newness of what Jesus Christ came to offer and provide. Therefore, I can find purpose and significance when I live from the upside down. When I live with my relationship with God as my pinnacle, and then everything else flows from that. Here's my fear. My fear is, or my hunch rather, is that you fit in one of two categories. You are either sitting here today and you are the optimist. You are hopeful and you are optimistic, and you're sitting there and you're maybe arguing with me a little bit saying, you say that, but I'm telling you, Andrew, this next thing that I'm about to do, it's going to be different. It's the new thing. It's going to give me joy. This new job, I just put in for it, and I have an interview coming up, and this is it. This is it, and you're the optimist, and I'm glad for that. And I don't want to rain on your parade or burst your bubble or any of that, but I want you to know that if that is the hope, if that is the source of hope for your life, you will be disappointed. You will be disappointed. There is no hope in those things, only when you live from the upside down, starting with your relationship with Christ. Maybe you're not the optimist, but maybe you're now the bitter cynic. You're like, I've been there, I've done that, and it all stinks. It's all bad, it's all empty. And you know what? There is no joy. I just can't wait till life is over. Maybe that's you. Or maybe you're just this eternal depressed person. Like everybody's against you, the world's against you, everybody's out to get you. They only prop you up so they can cut you down. They're only giving you so they can rob from you. And everybody's just positioning themselves to take advantage of you. And everybody's a liar and everybody's a cheater and the world is horrible. You know what I'm talking about, because you know who you are. And you wouldn't even get that aggressive because you're too depressed to get that aggressive. And I'm telling you, there is a source of hope and joy that you can find that will burst all of the chains of that frustration and depression and anger and emptiness and hopelessness. There is something you can find in a relationship with God, in the new covenant of his blood, in the new life, in the new creation that he came. The stream and the endless cycle would never be broken if somebody didn't come and break it and break the rhythm and break the cycle. And Jesus did that. And you who are bitter and empty and frustrated can know that joy is found in God. Joy is found from the upside down. Joy, there is an answer to Tom Brady's question. There is an answer to your question. There is a light at the end of your tunnel. There is a sunrise that actually brings some kind of hope. And that is a relationship with God. And I'm begging you and pleading with you to know this. That if you are the optimist or you are the bitter cynic, there's a third option, and that is this biblical godly wisdom that tells you there needs to be a different way to look at this. Instead of living life from the downside up, I really need to live life from the upside down. And Solomon's on this journey, and we're going to take it with him. We're going to take it with him. And I want you to know before I close here that his purpose is not to make you feel life is pointless. His purpose is to make you feel that life is empty and you have an ache for something more, and we can introduce you to that something more, and that is a relationship with God. Amen? Okay. Let me give you 3 learning to lives. These are points that we want to take with us. We don't learn to just become knowledgeable of truth. We don't learn just to become knowledgeable of doctrine. We learn to live. What we learn changes the way we live. And so I want to give you 3 of them that you ask yourself. I'm not necessarily going to even give you the answer. I just want you to ask these. And here's what they are. Number 1, where am I chasing significance for life? Where? You could put who, you could put what, you could put any other thing there. Where am I chasing significance for life? Listen, what is it that you are after in hopes that it will provide you with some kind of significance to your life? Can I tell you that if it is anything other than a relationship with God through Jesus Christ, it will disappoint you. It will disappoint you. That's number 1. Number 2, how can I increase joyful stewardship of life? How can I increase joyful stewardship of life? If my life is not this vain existence in which I am born, work, then die. There's something more to this. There's something more to the endless cycle. There's something more than just to live and be forgotten. There's something more to this. Then how am I stewarding my joyful life? How am I increasing that? How am I making sure that my life is not lived for the things that are here and gone tomorrow? How do I make sure that my life is not living for the empty ends? How do I make sure that my life is lived for something that is the purpose for which it was created? That's the question you have. So we look into the Word and we look into the Bible and we look to God and we look to the Spirit and we say, God, give me a purpose that is bigger than that which is here today and gone tomorrow. Give me something bigger. Show me the bigger purpose of my life and help me to live that out joyfully, not empty, frustrated, and depressed. And then number 3, who needs my sympathy for their perspective? Here's what I've learned. The people around you in this world have a perspective like Solomon. Something is going to fill my emptiness. This pursuit, this party, this job, this status, this victory, this developing thing that I've got, this new thing is going to give me some kind of joy and hope. And my ache for those people is to say, no, that doesn't. And so who in your life do you ache for? Who in your life are you looking and watching them run down a road that maybe you ran down and you found no joy at the end of, and your heart is breaking for them and your heart is sympathetic for them and you want to introduce them to the I wish I knew question? The answer to the I wish I knew question is Jesus. And so who needs your sympathy in that? Who needs your heart to be moved and broken for their need and their desperate place? Who? And then let's introduce them to the answer to that question. The only answer, who is Christ. That's the mission. The big idea. Upside down life infuses significance into the cycle of every life. Let's change it. Let's stop living down here, up. Let's start living up there, upside, down into the rest of our lives. Amen? Let's pray.